Okay, I occasionally do wrestlers from different eras. So this time I'm going with the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom, depending on when you actually saw them, versus you either know them as the Dudleys, the Dudley Boys, or Team 3D. Now I'm taking these two teams from a very specific era. So I'm looking at the Road Warriors during their NWA time, and 3D Dudley Boys, or the Dudleys from their ECW era. Now, of course, I do this through a fairly long set of criteria where I've got strength, speed, endurance. This is how well would you do in a longer match. Toughness. This is the amount of beating you normally took. Striking, grappling, submissions, high flying, over the crowd, ring psychology, and overall mic work. Now, I normally do these if it ends up being, like 6 to 5. The group of 6, if they were to fight, let's say they were to do a best of 5 series. The team of 6 is going to take 3. It's going to be a 3 to 2. So they're going to end up having that last climactic match. Just because one team has a 1 point advantage doesn't mean that they're going to just absolutely annihilate the opposing team. So we'll get started. Strength. If you've never seen the Road Warriors in their prime, during the NWA time going into WCW, they were probably two of the most intimidating and most impactful individuals you would ever see. Their power was bordering almost on like legendary. These two guys were two huge Chicago dudes who just laid everybody out. 3D, the Dudleys, Bubba and Devon, strong guys, but they are nowhere near as strong as the Road Warriors. Speed. Beyond being strong, if you watch some of their matches, you guys were big, strong, fast dudes. They were the absolute epitome of Smash Mouth. I mean, you watch some of their matches, it is big, quick, impactful moves. You don't see wrestlers like that anymore. Endurance. This is going to go to the Dudleys. The majority of matches the Road Warriors are in, they pretty much destroyed their opponents. They weren't getting paid by the hour. They were getting paid by the match. So they normally just tore through their opponents. This is also during a time, too, when, depending on who you were watching, most of your matches were a bit on the shorter side. The Dudleys, when you watch old ECW pay-per-views, they would have really long matches, which you never really saw from the Road Warriors. Toughness. I'm going to hear this in the comments. I know it has to go to the Road Warriors. You're probably thinking about an ECW, you had tables matches, you'd always with our weapons matches. You did. Now I have to compare that to scaffold matches, to war games. If you look up the history of war games, there was a time when it was done, it seemed like almost every single month. And the Legion of Doom or the Road Warriors were in almost every single one of them. So they were always in those first matches. And watch their old scaffold match that they had. Just type in Road Warriors scaffold match. And then go to the next year's Starcade type of scaffold match. And you'll notice the scaffold is a lot shorter. The Dudleys never had a scaffold match. Scaffold matches back in the day were ridiculously insane. The Road were supposed to take on the Powers of Pain, which was the Barbarian and the Warlord. They quit the company finding out that they were going to have to do a series of scaffold matches, because that's how dangerous that match was. Now it's striking. Again, when it comes to the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, they were two big, strong, punch-kick dudes. Punch, kick, shoulder block. That's a lot of their moves right there. Punch, kick, shoulder block. Now we're coming to grappling. You didn't see that much in the way of grappling from the Road Warriors. That was not their MO. They were big clotheslines, big slams. You really didn't see that much. Now from the Dudleys, as you started seeing things like power bombs, I also definitely have to include a move like 3D. 3D is a fantastic two-man grapple move. Beautiful, looks fantastic. When the Dudleys were first included in the PlayStation game SmackDown, they didn't have tag team moves. Me and a buddy spent about a good half an hour trying to figure out if there was an unlockable tag team move. There wasn't. Of course, in the sequels after that for SmackDown, they did throw in tag team moves, and it was awesome. I think every tag team almost anybody made probably had 3D in it. Now we're going to move to submissions. You're probably thinking, I don't really recall either of these two teams really doing a lot in the way of submissions. You did see more in the way of headlocks. You did see some better overall grappling, some better overall submission style work. You did see more from that than the Dudleys than you saw from the Road Warriors. High flying. This is 110%. This is the Doomsday Device was this phenomenal off the top rope finisher. And when you see some of the earlier iterations of it, they almost killed people doing it. You know, it was, you're going off the top rope to take eat a clothesline, I'm going to push your legs out, I'm just going to rocket you through the air. It was just a ridiculous move. The Dudleys later added it to their list of finishers they would use for a match, but this was an amazing move when it first came out. Still probably one of the most impactful tag team finishers. Over with the crowd. The Dudleys did a fantastic job being a great heel tag team. Dudleys did have some issues a little bit earlier on when initially Bubba Ray did a lot of his stuttering thing, so they were pretty over with the crowd. If you go back to the 80s, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, were the hottest tag team in professional wrestling. When they would go overseas and they would demolish the tag teams that they took on over there, it was an absolutely incredible thing to see. When they came into the WWE, after the WCW and NWA stint, the Road Warriors were easily the most over tandem. It pretty much went Hogan, Road Warriors, unless you're in Chicago. If you're in Chicago or anywhere in the Midwest, it was pretty much the Road Warriors and then Hulk Hogan. Ring psychology. I've met Animal, and when you meet him now, he is still a ridiculously imposing individual. Now I want you to picture two big, bruising individuals. Put on crazy makeup. Give them crazy hairstyles. Have them on motorcycles. But we're not done yet. Put giant shoulder pads on them. Now put giant spikes in them. That is an undeniably intimidating visage when they make their way to the ring. So I'm going to have to give overall ring psychology and the presence and the way that they knew how to tell a story. Their story was, you are our opponents. We are going to kill you. And they had this just, from the moment you heard their music and they made it to that ring, you knew you were in for a beating. And that's something you just never really saw the Dudleys truly get to that level. They just never seemed to have that. When they made it to the E, they got better at it, but in ECW they didn't seem to have enough in the way of telling a really solid story and be able to have that overall psychological advantage getting into a match. So now down to the last one. This is mic work. The Road Warriors had a very unique style when it came to doing a promo. Loud, drawn-out words. They did a good job when it came to getting their point across, but not all that great on the mic. You can go back and watch some of the Dudley's old ones after Bubba finally quit doing the stuttering gimmick, which he did initially in ECW and then did when he was brought into the WWE. At that time, WWF. It was a stupid gimmick to have a guy who stuttered. He could cut promos that would almost make the crowd go into a riot. That's how good he is on the mic. If you don't think he was good on the mic back then, if you see his TNA work now, it's very emblematic of stuff that he knew how to do in ECW. So when it comes to mic work, I'm giving that one, of course, to Team 3D. So if you're keeping score at home, I'm kind of giving it a 7-4 in the way of the Road Warriors. Should probably also throw this out there. I live near Chicago, so the Roars have always been my team. Period. So that might have clouded a little bit. I'm also trying to compare people from a much more brutal era of wrestling, which of course was the NWA style, talking the territory style, versus the ECW style, which they did really brutal matches. But they normally had downtime. ECW kind of for a while had almost like a TNA sort of scenario to it, where you do a couple of shows, but you had a decent amount of downtime. The NWA, if you were a hot talent, you traveled. You traveled crazy. So your body was constantly beat up. So if these two teams were to fight, both in their relative primes, I do think that the Road Warriors would do a pretty good job when it comes to defeating the Dudleys.